On Insightful Inspiration, Isabelle Landreville chats with a mosaic of brilliant individuals that help shape the insights industry. We live stream episodes to LinkedIn, and you can listen on all major podcast networks. Join us, and please subscribe so you won't miss our guests' insightful inspiration and hear what drives them and how they get inspired to be successful in the insights industry and beyond. Insightful Inspiration is brought to you by Sylvester & Co., an award-winning qualitative research firm with half a century of experience.
Welcome back to another episode of Insightful Inspiration, where we explore the complexities of understanding people and uncovering meaningful insights. I'm your host, Isabelle Landreville, proud owner for 10 years now this year. I know, for Sylvester & Co. I feel like I need to tell you my age now, but I won't. You can guess that or follow up afterwards. So today I'm very excited. We are exploring the relationship between brands and researchers because that relationship is more critical than ever. But what makes those partnerships truly effective is really the questions we're asking today. When does research transform from a deliverable into a catalyst for meaningful business action? When can it help your career? Our guest today brings a wealth of experience in brand positioning and consumer insights. I am extremely thrilled to welcome Kathy Galloway, known as the Clarity Wizard. She has the best title ever. She helps CPG brand owners maximize revenue and minimize risk by optimizing brand positioning. With over 20 years of experience across more than 30 product categories, Kathy brings a unique perspective on this topic. So through her work with emerging and established brands, speaking engagements, and teaching experience, Kathy has developed practical approaches to help brands ask better questions and transform insights into action. Kathy, welcome to Insightful Inspiration.
Thank you so much. What a great intro. I'm so excited to talk to you. We're going to have a great convo.
Too.
I know already.
I think so. Yeah, I think we get really excited when we talk together. So I'm thinking we are off to, I think listeners are off to out for a really nice experience. And I love how you've been using consumer insights and really leveraging them, but it's not just about the questions that we ask people. It's not just about the opinions. It's what that means and what they mean and how you transform that into something really meaningful to fuel growth and success. And so how about we jump right in? How about you tell me, how do you approach clients who struggle to articulate what they're really trying to learn from research?
Yeah, and thanks for having me again. I think the exciting thing for me about marketing and the work that I've done over the course of my career is the fact that we are literally impacting people's lives, that we're literally in people's homes. It's what I love actually about CPG, that I think the stat is at any given day, you touch 50 different consumer packaged goods brands, and that's so powerful. And that is really where insights begins. And so talking to clients about the work that they need to get done often comes through the lens of a business need. We need to hit a number. We've got a project that we got to push through. And my work always starts with, but why? The but why is the opening door to get to, let's figure out what the right questions are. Let's figure out how we get the answers to that. But why forces you to say, I do want to innovate in XYZ category, not because it's cool and trendy and fun and that's what everybody's talking about, but because here are the specific business objectives and what it is we're trying to do with a consumer and connect with someone in order to deliver some sort of value. And that is where questions really start to appear, and just the starting point for what research should look like.
Yeah, there's a real purpose behind the questions that I'm asking as a researcher. And I feel like to really understand, to your point, that purpose, you need to ask different questions before you even figure out what questions you need to ask your consumers. I've got some questions that I really like asking. What's your favorite question to ask a client before starting a project?
The funny thing about it is that the why question, it seems obvious and short. Anyone doing work with a client is going to ask, help me understand why this is important to you. But I find that the issue of strategy and having clarity of where you're headed is
Mm-hmm.
that you don't ask enough why. The why
Mm-hmm.
stops. Why do you need to do that? I have this business deliverable. Why do we have this business deliverable? Oh, because last year we have an overlap. But why do you have an overlap? Well, because the consumers XYZ. But why did the why is actually the best question, and it is actually never ending. You can continue on the why until you get to, because we're humans and we live on the planet Earth, and then
Yeah.
you've really reached the end. But the why is it's the simplest, hardest, most impactful of all of
Mm-hmm.
the questions. And sometimes people don't want to hear the why, because the uncomfortable truth is that it uncovers the fact that you don't have a why. It uncovers the fact that there's actually other pieces that are missing. It uncovers the fact that there may not be alignment as to the reason for the work, or that even more likely that we are designing this work around hypotheses that actually are based on false assumptions. And those false assumptions that we have not discussed as a group lead us to questions that actually are not even the right questions, whether it's that we didn't articulate them the right way, or they're not actually a priority questions, or actually you know enough on that, but you don't know enough on this, completely gets lost. And so I find new and different ways to ask the why, because it makes people uncomfortable. But
Yeah.
really, I'm always just asking the why, the why, the why. I need the story of why this makes sense and why this fits. So you may get a lot of why from me today.
And I love it. I think I've always, I think it's my favorite question in discussion guides now. I literally write, I don't put in why everywhere, because it's just the
Mhm.
assumption that I will be following up every question with why, up to a certain
Exactly.
point. But to your point, I think there is something also that even though you want to keep asking why, and you want to keep barking up the tree up to a certain point to sort of understand the background and sort of the genesis of it all, I think using the the wording why systematically can kind of get people on the defensive. So I do think that
Yeah.
you do need, to your point, to sort of be creative in sort of different ways in and different questions here and there.
Mm.
Yeah, and I think there's always something, I don't know about you, but I feel like people maybe more so than ever want to move really, really fast. And I think that sometimes
Yes.
having that moment where, let's take a step back, to actually really understand so that we can run in the right direction. It's going to actually, like, I now I have to more so than ever. And I'm curious to know if you're experiencing the same thing. I'm more so challenged now and having to present a kickoff or a good briefing, or kind of that, let's figure out what you need to do. Let's connect on that so I can ask those whys. And they feel like I'm slowing them down sometimes. And I'm like, no, it's to speed us up. It's maybe just 30 minutes or 45 minutes. It doesn't need to be a lot of time, but let's connect so that we make sure that we can run and in the right direction. We're not like running in
Yeah.
multiple directions or having to course correct. But I feel like I need
Yeah.
to
So true. So
convince
true.
them a bit
Yeah.
more. Yeah.
That's exactly what it is. Convince them. What I find is that it's really hard to get clients to business owners. It's not really because they're clients, but because you are running a business, the day-to-day, very difficult work of being a brand owner that I myself experienced early in my career as a brand manager. The challenge is that there's no time for that, because the business is demanding results.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the things I leverage a lot in helping my clients move things forward is that understanding, is having that past experience of knowing what it's like to be in an elevator where the CEO pops in and says, so tell me how the business is at Walmart this week. And the person in the elevator, aka me, is flipping out because I didn't get the right information, or I didn't move fast enough, or something happened, it got delayed. And so it's a real issue of having to deliver results.
Mm-hmm.
And so often it does feel that we are pulling clients back, but it
Mm-hmm.
is exactly for that purpose, is in order for us to speed up. And it is not a small thing that everyone is trying to move faster. It is actually how I prefer to do business. I prefer to do work. I grew up in as I'm sure you did it back in the days. We grew up in this world where CPG brand marketing was a 2-year timeline for anything. Like it didn't matter, like whatever it was 2 years it took,
Yeah.
right? And so we still, particularly I think in Fortune 1000 CPG companies, we're still kind of holding on to this desire and this need for reducing risk. But the way that we know how to reduce risk is by doing a lot and not slowing down. It's still doing
Mhm.
all of the things, just trying to do them faster.
Yeah.
However, what I've learned, and particularly in doing work with startups, I did quite a bit of work with clients who adopted agile principles. So really got to learn a lot over the last 5-7 years about design thinking and how do we learn faster to fail faster.
Mhm.
And I have to leverage that experience in storytelling to the client how slowing down is actually going to speed us up, because
Yeah.
it goes against everything that we are told to do as a
Mhm.
brand owner. The world is moving right now. Kathy, I
Yeah.
don't have time for a 2-day workshop. Like, I need you to just get into the field and give me some answers like immediately. But it is the unlock, because actually, what you find in spending the time to think through it and ask the whys is that you may need less than you think you do. I find often that there are questions being asked that I may push back and say, but is that actually the question? I don't know that you need that answer, because the real problem is this other thing that we've uncovered in having the
Yeah.
dialogue. And so leveraging people like us is the smartest thing you can do, because you don't have that time or that space in your brain to think that way.
Mhm.
And so I try to influence clients that way, but it's difficult to get them to slow down. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think I've stopped using the word slow down. Like we're using the words like slow down to like stop and think. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm like, let's yeah, I stopped using the words let's take a step back. I'm like, okay, so tell me more about this project so that
Exactly.
we know
Yes.
how. So I'm using different language. So that seems to be helping
Yeah.
quite a bit. So I'm sure you're feeling the same thing. I also feel like, to your point you were saying earlier, this notion of if you do a strong kickoff, I feel like sometimes people want to jump the kickoff or skip over the kickoff and just go right into field. And I'm like, let's do a good kickoff
Mm,
and then we can make sure our field work is really streamlined. Because to your
right.
point, if you do a really good kickoff and you do ask those whys coming out, your field work probably doesn't have to be as extensive, as long, as in depth. And I'm not, I'm a quali, so I'm all depth and not, breadth. But there's something about maybe you don't need to talk to lapsed users in this case. Maybe to your point, you don't need to ask that question. Maybe you don't. And it's not like everything but the kitchen sink. And since we have them, I'm like, let's not
Yeah.
do that because it creates
Yes.
time. It takes more time to report back, more time to connect the dots, more time. So I think it speeds us up literally because it allows us to really focus and home in and make our field work really meaningful.
Yeah, I think that's the power really of learning plans, and you and I didn't get chance to talk about this previously, but learning plans to me as a strategist are really the unlock to make create the kind of thoughtful, considerate, and effective planning of your knowledge base.
Hmm.
What tends to happen is this question has come from the many sources. It can come from the retailer, it came from the C-suite. There's something in the news that got the CMO asking questions. Now there is a piece of research that we're developing, versus let's spend the time in the prior year, Q4 being ideal, but really anytime as soon as you
Yeah.
can, and stop and think about what it is this business really needs to unlock in order for us to be able to move forward. And that entire process is a process of asking yourselves the why and prioritizing the questions. Whether you do, I love a hypothesizing session where we're busting assumptions and then prioritizing based on impact to the business and lack of knowledge, so that, to exact your point, you're not having to field a quant study with 3,000 sample size because you need to know everything about everybody. You don't need to execute 50 one-on-one interviews to get a sense for how people shop. And it actually helps you go faster. It helps you save significant amount of money. And then on the back end, the work that you would produce and deliver to me as the strategist, if we've done the homework up front, there's so much less that I have to do on the back end that I can then take that and run with it right into strategy, instead of having it like massage and I got to find what the insights are and how do I pick the things I need in order to tell the story. It's a waste of time, truly, if you have not done the work up front.
And I mean, if you don't do the work up front, then I can't build a story. I can't figure out. I just am then stuck with reporting back, which is in my mind, the worst thing ever. I get bored of, I've never been good at reporting back. I've been at this for 25 years. Yes. I've never been good at reporting back. I've been good at the elevator pitch. I've been good at the story. I've been good at the analogy, the metaphor, all of that, but never been good at reporting back. And so I leave that to, other people on my team, and they do appendix. But there is a notion of getting the answers too, but it's not so much getting the answer as much as what that means. And I do a lot of research in English and in Canada, across North America, and that is so much truer in Quebec and in French than it is in English Canada or even in the States. There's something about French and the language and the culture that it's not what I say, it's what I meant by those words. So it's even more important, especially when you're doing research and fieldwork in a language and a culture that people are not immersed in.
That's so interesting you say that. I moderate in Spanish, bilingual groups, and it's exactly the same thing. It's also true when you're speaking to any BIPOC consumer, any Black, Indigenous, people of color consumers, that they just live a different reality than the general population, and understanding the why is so important. If in particular you do not have an intuition and experience about that consumer, it's even more important to be clear about the why. Because if you're going on a fishing expedition, it's useless and a big waste of money. But two, especially if you're going to talk to an incremental audience that will be marketed to, for lack of a better term, the way that another audience is, right? We're getting these insights in order to talk to everyone in the same way. That is a recipe for disaster if we are not clear about what the questions are, because a lot of what you learn about these, let's call them niche groups, for lack of a better term right now, is that on the surface, and I'd love to hear your experience in learning about consumers this way. On the surface, there are nothing but similarities in many ways, in the way that we consume products and that we shop for products, the way that our brain works, and system 1, system 2, that has nothing to do with race or ethnicity or income levels or where in the world you live. And so on the surface, you see similarities. But when you get into the things that really matter, particularly on the emotional side, which is what I think you were referencing, that's where the real differences are. Actually, I'll give you an example. I remember many years ago, actually right out of business school, I was on the Lay's business, at Frito-Lay and PepsiCo. I was on the Lay's business for many years. And we at the time were trying to uncover really what was the kind of the key emotional space for Lay's, and what was that kind of hierarchy that we were really bringing to consumers. And a lot of work was done back then. That was when it did take 2 years, and it did take $300,000 or whatever it was. But what we got to is that the experience of eating Lay's is really founded in an emotion of joy. That having this really simple moment in the middle of your day really brought joy to what could be a mundane every other day, which, by the way, if anyone caught their ad in the Super Bowl, they are still talking about joy. So that has been consistent, and absolutely love that.
That's still the brand insight. Yeah.
Continues. Yeah. One of the things we found there was about the differences between Gen Pop, aka white consumers, and Hispanic consumers at the time. And it was a different world for Hispanic Latino consumers at the time. This was early 2000s, 2008, 9, 10, something like that. What was different was that, yes, as a mom, I am shopping for my family. I'm buying these products. I want my family to be happy. On the side of the white consumers, Gen Pop, I want my family to be happy with me. We are here sort of in a sharing mode. And in many ways, I balance my own needs against yours. For the Hispanic mom, for the Latino mom, it was a lot more just about you all, where my personal desires and needs maybe didn't play as much of a role as it might have in Gen Pop. But the way that it looked was, I want my family to be happy, and having this simple moment of joy makes me make my family happy. But what it looks like in the real world, and what it looks like for mom and the kind of choices that she makes, is pretty different between those two, where the Gen Pop consumer is really considering a broad range of things in order to make those decisions, whereas the Hispanic mom, the Latina mom, is trying to think about, how do I do the best I can for my family? It's really much more pushed onto them. And so my decisions are driven by very different things. And again, if you don't know enough to ask the right question, you would lose that. It would completely be gone, and you spend all of your time, right, doing research upon research without really getting to the core insight of that. That's so important.
Yeah.
You found that?
There are differences. I think it's interesting too, because Canada has 2 official languages, so it's a little bit. Well, I think the States kind of does, but anyways, let's not open that discussion. But
yes.
Canada officially has 2 languages, so it's always, when you get to Quebec, you have to say in French. So I think that also helps, because you have to use a different language, and therefore let's make sure we leverage and lean into that language properly. So I do think having the same moderator across actually does help, because then you're more sensitive to, even in your line of questioning, is it that word versus this word? Like, you can sort of listen differently for keywords and consumer language in that sense. So you can revert back and sort of say, well, you know what? It allows you to go, is it the same strategy, but just you need to speak to it, using and leaning into the culture that is the language, or the cultural, device that is the language, in different ways to sort of execute against the same strategy? Or do you need 2 separate strategies? And sometimes, and oftentimes, actually, because it has to be expressed in 2 languages, you can go in with the same strategy, but then we can sort of tease out, this is more, emotionally driven first versus functional, driven first. And then, because there are some basic kind of ground rules. One, Quebec has always survived up to a certain point and is still very much French, and has a different legal system amongst the sea of English people and Anglophones. So there is a bit of this notion that it needs to feel like it comes from the inside. God forbid it has subtitles or it feels like it comes from the outside, or it has the touristy guide kind of things, which are the landmarks you would see on the postcards, kind of in an ad, just kind of slapped around. Because they'll wait for it. They'll sort of, go, really? Is this what, like, you want to resonate with me, but you're just using the tourist kind of postal. So there's a bit of that comes through, which is always also going back to the history of things, which is the why. Like, why is
That
the
is the
culture
why.
manifesting that? So why is, are coming up this way? Because we're not like, Quebecers are not like French people. God forbid you say that. That's another thing that will ruffle them all together. But there's different things
Yeah.
to that extent, especially with moms. I do think there's some really interesting insights around mothers and sort of how they're hardwired. And in English Canada, not to be stereotypical, but there is this notion of a mom will be busy and almost proud to be busy. And it's a successful mom is busy and their kids are programmed and there's after school and blah, blah, blah. In Quebec, they were the first one to have subsidized childcare. Women go to school longer. Dads go on pat leave. Like, if men are saying, I'm not going on pat leave and it's subsidized, people will actually say you're a bad father. So culturally,
Just
dads are so
culturally.
much more involved. It's almost for younger generations kind of the norm to have women being the main providers. So it changes the entire family dynamic. So you're a good dad if you've changed as many diapers, if not more. It's expected of you in Quebec, whereas in English Canada, not so much. And so women actually are it's very interesting how women never lose sight of who they are as women. They're not just mothers.
I'm curious to hear then your thoughts about one of the things I'm really excited about to see, particularly because I have a 17-year-old. I have a 17 and 15. Their birthdays are in a month, as a matter of fact. So as I'm imagining them moving out into the world and becoming women in their own right, what I'm excited to see is how women in general have really doubled down in their own forward progress, whether that's in educating ourselves and really working on our internal selves, whether that's taking care of ourselves physically. There's just such a shift in the way that we think about self-care and what that means. And I find, at least in my peer group, I haven't seen it so much in CPG. It may have not just trickled down yet, but I'm curious where you have seen that come up, that there's sort of a shift in the way women are thinking, the moms are thinking in the United States, that maybe over time will get us closer to what you've seen in Canada. Oh, and I'm sorry, now I'm turning into putting my podcast host hat on all of a sudden.
We're completely sort of off the... No, but I think it's interesting. So I won't claim to be an expert on sort of that topic.
Sure.
But I think that there is, from my experience, there is something happening in Canada because so I think there's two things. I do think that, and I had a podcast around, March and women and blah, 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 and women in business and all of that. And it's always a topic of mine that's dear, close to my heart. There is something about, I think, this next generation being so much more intentional in where they're deciding to be, who they want to be, how they're going about it, and who they are deciding to partner with. And who they're deciding to maybe have kids with. I think there's so much more intent, not to say strategy, in sort of how they're going about it. I will, however, because I started my career in a different country, I will say, though, even though I'm Canadian, I did come back to Canada, and especially even Montreal over New York or Toronto, that were cities, because when I came back, we had a choice of cities. And we picked Montreal because Montreal had almost no glass ceiling for women in comparison and in contrast to the other. And I picked Montreal probably as my home sort of town, probably close to 20 years ago. So this is 2 decades ago. I'm sure it's evolved, but there is a system here of very strong women that have been in politics and have shaped things to actually really get women out into the world and being strong women in business and so forth, and having men really value and find it to be successful to be hands-on parents and hands-on fathers and so forth. So I think there's a much more sort of a culture of parity between the genders. And I think last year it was something about gender parity. If we are part of Canada, and we'll have to fact check this. Christophe, you'll have to fact check this. But I think off memory, Canada was like 20th in the world for gender parity. And if Quebec was on its own, it'd be number 8.
Wow. Yeah, that's fantastic. Okay,
difference.
so I got to move to Canada, is what you're saying. Got it. Check.
I converted someone else. There you go. Check. That was on my to-do list for the week. I
can't deal with the colds. Yeah. I'm a liar. I can't deal with the cold, but in theory,
well, I lost my car this week into a full 6 feet of snow. So literally lost my car. I had no proof of that I had a car. But back to sort of bridging the gap between sort of strategy and brand. This is what we do when we get together. We get inspired. But I think it's a mindful kind of conversation. But I think it also sheds light on sort of what's important to us and how we probably, the both of us, are wired, which is doing something that is meaningful with intent. And I think that will always at the end result in better, stronger work and faster sort of field work, faster processes or journeys. Don't you think?
Yeah, 100%. Actually, another shift I found that has been happening, certainly since COVID, I should say it's sped up since COVID. And I have been talking about it as, how do we shift away from this idea that marketing is about a sales number, that marketing is about delivering one more, as we used to say, one more bag of Lay's potato chips, and realizing that in fact what we are doing is connecting with a human that is giving you their hard-earned dollars, aka giving you value in exchange for value. And when you remove the overarching business need, which is I got to hit whatever $100 million this year, and instead you reframe it through, what is it that I need to do to get humans to be happy, to be successful, to get the right food in their bodies, to get to the places they need to go, to support their families, their children, whatever it is your product does, reframing it to how can I provide value and how can I make impact completely changes how you think about the work to be done. When I start from the point of, I need an innovation that is $50 million and I've got to figure out how to get a big idea. I'm looking for size of prize. And instead you pivot to, I want to figure out how do let's pick as a matter of fact, I have this at my desk right now. This is Mega Food, one of my favorite brands actually. So at Mega Food, actually, this is a great brand for that, right? How instead do I say to myself, this is their advanced women's multivitamin. How do I get women over 40 to be healthier so that they can do more in their lives? What is it that they need that is going to make them more successful? And if I am in pursuit of that over a point of sale, it means that I'm going to deliver something that is going to be of greater value to them. And that is where the reward comes. That's where the point of sale happens, is in that exchange of value, versus thinking about individuals as, dollar signs. These are household penetration points.
Yeah.
These are people, they're real people. And that's what makes all
Yeah.
the difference.
And I was like, I always like, we were talking about different ways of asking why and sort of different sort of questions that we've been using over the years. And one of my I've got multiple, I do questions. I almost like charge by the question almost. This is what I do. It's the art of the question. But before, doing field work, I really like asking people, what's going to make you fall in love with the people you're trying to serve, or that you're in service of. There's something about if at the end of a debrief, I see people go, "Oh, I get it. I know how I want, not only do I know how to add value to their lives or help them, I want to." Which I
Yeah.
think then really empowers them to do the right thing up to a certain point. And I think gives it a more strategic feel than just, and I've had things like, this is not going to get me promoted, which I'm like, okay, but what will? Like, let's just face it, what will?
What will?
What are you?
Mhm.
Yeah, which let's have an honest conversation. But I think there's something there. And then we do have a question actually from one of the listeners that I just wanted to bring in, which
Yeah.
is, what's the best way to get a strategist? And it's a question for you. What's the best way of getting a strategist to value primary research? Or maybe to get your clients to buy into primary research?
Yeah, well, then I'll answer it two different ways. If the question is,
Sure.
how do we get a strategist to value primary research? The answer is you don't. If they don't value primary research, they're not a strategist and you should not work with them, because there is always a role. It may not be appropriate in this project, but the idea that broadly primary research is not right, that's an issue. I think also the second half of her question was about, which I think is an important question, is the role between my type of offering and your type of offering, the kind of work that I do and the kind of work that you do, which is the question is, when is it appropriate for a strategist to do research themselves versus to have the client work with an established company like yourself? And that's a valid question, particularly in these days where agile research is everywhere, anywhere. Literally anyone can do any kind of research. And that was true before. We just didn't realize it. It felt like it was this big secret mystery, but actually you could always do it yourself, because AKA research is just talking to somebody. You and I are currently doing research right now, as a matter of fact, talking to each other. Right? And so I think I would love to hear your experience with this, because I'm sure it's something you also have thought about. As a strategist, for me, the question of who does the research is not at all about the who, and still all about the question. If the question is simple and there are simple tools and ways for us to get the answer, I am a huge proponent of clients themselves finding ways to become researchers. As a brand owner, it is up to you to learn how to go out and get insights from the many resources you have now, including, by the way, all of our new generative AI tools and platforms. There's a lot of insight there. Where it becomes important to bring in what is an expert is when the questions are more strategic, they're more important, they're more impactful, and you really need someone who knows how to go from a fuzzy, ambiguous place really to get you through that story exactly as you described. That's when I need a strong partner. And that is for the really important questions, not the little questions, right? Like, I need a flavor assortment, and what's the right flavor to prioritize? May not be that right thing. You can probably do that. But if you're trying to understand how to unlock important, answers, you need the right partner. So I would say to Jennifer and anyone who's working with strategists like myself or other consultants, freelancers, what you are looking for, I think the clues you would look for is, do they have an understanding of the question? Are they forcing you to make tough choices? And are they actually bringing you options?
Mhm.
It is rare that I will go to a client and say, look, I can do all of this for you. You're good and done. As opposed to, hey, here are a few different ways we can do this. You can do this in-house. I can do this, or we can go with someone who really has the strength. And it's more a strategic conversation about what's going to get us the right answer to the question that we need. So again, if the strategist is challenging you on primary research or working with established research companies, that's a red flag I would definitely think about. Well, what are
Yeah.
your thoughts on how you and I would kind of work that way?
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I think over the course, like I've been a quali for 25 years, and I do think that and maybe it's because I've been at it 25 years too, but there is something about like qual has shifted, our work has shifted, and I'm so happy about it because it's so much more I get bored really easily, and I don't like reporting back. So I do not like collecting opinion. I do love translating answers and consumer voices into something meaningful. So I love pairing with a strategist like yourself because I like asking sort of the tougher questions. I like having that sort of kindredship and real partnership, whereas you're tied into sort of the strategic, the sort of business sense, and then we can work together. Like, how do you want to learn? What is it that you need to learn? What's going to get your juices going? I really like asking, like I have a strategist that I work with on a frequently, and I have over the last 10 years or so, and she's a very visual learner. And so I know when I work with her that whenever we do primary research, I get consumers to draw things. I get consumers to create vision boards and multimedia things. We get our in-house ethnographic film team involved. We do different things so that the research material is generated
Mm,
by the consumers. We use memes as a language because
mm,
she will be really inspired by that, really empowered by that, and will run with that. I've got other
mm,
people that really are very tied to words, very tied to,
mm.
you can't just use an analogy because they'll say, what do you mean by that? Like you really need to
Yeah.
fill it out. So we use different approaches that way. So I think there's also, I think I agree with a red flag if they do not
Mm,
value primary research. So I think that's one thing. And I mean, there's good people like us and bad, like I mean, there's everything
quality.
exists in the
There's a
world.
range of quality. There's a range of
Yeah.
quality. Yes.
So that being said, I'm going to be very Canadian on that one. Just say it is what it is. But I think there's something to be said about that red flag, but also this notion of pairing up with your strategist. If you're going to be the primary
Mm,
researcher on something, you can't just work in silo because you have to work together. So I do think this notion of having a team and having the client come in with their expertise and their internal, having the strategy come in as the expert for the strategy, and having the researcher come in and for everybody to work together. I think that's where you get the best out of everything and everyone, versus having a siloed approach or having egos
mm,
or a little bit of competition or a little bit of whatever. I do think
mm.
there's harmony in sort of, you know what, this is what I have to sort of bring forward, and this is what I need to offer you my best. And I think
Yeah.
there's nothing like a really great team meeting to figure out
Mm,
like, okay, this, like when you do a project, you cast a team essentially, and everybody has a role, and everybody should have a role that reflects their superpowers. And based on that,
mhm,
you should really make sure that they're wearing their cape and you're not, you're just letting them fly and you're going to get the best out of them. So I think there's a lot of trust. And I think
mhm,
asking
mm.
why and sitting down and figuring out this is what I can offer. And this is like clarity and sort of honesty and being upfront and setting expectations. And I think asking why and doing all of that really builds trust and sets
Mm.
everybody to work together in unison, which is really the ideal. Now, life happens and things
Yeah.
happen. I'm short on time and whatnot, but that doesn't take time. It just takes
It
kind of
really doesn't.
it doesn't take time to be
No,
efficient
no.
and to work efficiently. I think it just needs a good kind of, let's just have a meeting and talk this through for half an hour.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
usually
I'm gonna lean into your Canadianness here because even as an American, a Latina, an Afro Latina living in this world, I very much lean into people. And
Mhm.
even we were talking a moment ago, and I was talking about this exchange of value and sort of committing to the consumer, and these are humans. That is not different than employees, people you hire, partners you work with. We are all showing up for an
Mhm.
exchange of value. And there is that level of respect that is necessary for all of us to get our best work done. And as a strategist, I find what I would want from other strategists and what I work very hard to deliver is um, an elevated conversation. I understand what my role is and what my lane is. And I highly, highly, highly value letting experts be the expert.
Yeah.
So what that means is I know Isabelle knows I don't need to tell you what questions to ask the consumer. I don't need to tell you how to write the report. What I need to do is tell you what's important to me. I need to live in my own zone of genius.
Mhm.
I need to understand how I can help the client think and ask questions in ways that they just don't have the mind space to do, because that is
Yep.
really the unlock for them. Is you don't have time to think about this, and that's my job to make you think
Yeah.
the way you would think if you had all the time in the world.
Mhm.
And I need to stay in that lane. That doesn't mean that I don't have a ton to say, and I have comments on everything. I have an opinion about
I
everything.
have opinions, as I say. I have opinions if someone
Opinions.
wants to hear, because no one ever
I-
asks me my opinion.
Me either. I share them anyway. You don't need to ask me. I will tell you what they are. However, those opinions and that perspectives, and even the questions that I am asking, are all coming from the right point of intent. And I can
Mm.
tell this in the conversations you and I've had that it's the same for you, right? Your point of intent is, how do I get the story about this consumer right? And so,
Yeah.
yes, you might be asking questions of me in front of the client that are in my purview,
Mhm.
that feel like maybe, well, why is Isabelle talking about stress? It's not her role, it's not her job. That is the wrong way to look at things.
Yeah.
It behooves all of us to ask the right questions and to recognize both your expertise, my expertise, the role that we play, and this is why asking the questions in the beginning is so helpful, because then we are both anchored to the end point. And
Yeah.
that's where you remove all the ego. Then it doesn't matter. The rest of it
And
doesn't matter, right?
voila. And then you're side by side looking towards the same kind of mountain you're trying to climb successfully
Yeah, yeah.
versus looking at each other. Because if you look at each other, where the heck are you going? You're just going at each other when you think about it. You're going nowhere fast. So I really like this notion
Yeah.
of side by side kind of approach. And that's kind of the
Right.
bridge you build, right? You're like handhold. It's not a kumbaya thing, but you know what? In
It can
hindsight,
be.
it could be.
It
It's
can
not
be.
Canadian, but anyways, it's not a Canadian thing. Just, but I think there's something about. But the question is always, you're 20 years in or so. I'm 25 years in or so. I mean, life has happened to me. I think there are things that I know.
Mm,
Just because I've journeyed through life, I was probably ahead of my time up to a certain point, but there's something about like I I not a, I've never been a people pleaser. So maybe that helps, but I'm not also a people pleaser. Yes, I'm only as good as my last project, but I truly understand that I need to be your Sherpa and I need to ask things and I need to guide you. And there's a way of doing it. Like EQ is a thing and politics is a thing.
mhm,
There's a
mhm,
way and a timing, but I need to tell you if we're going to run into a wall. I need to
mm,
tell you if this is not going to work. That is my role. That's why you're coming to me. And if I say we're not heading in the right direction, I need to have that. I need to be brave or bold or have that confidence, call it whatever you need to actually understand that that is my role and that's where I add value, versus telling you what you need to know or what
Want
I
to
think you
know.
want to know.
Mm.
And people pleasing. So I think there's also this notion that we are suppliers. We have mortgages. I have a payroll. There is this notion that we're only a
Right.
24 last project, but there is also this notion that at this point in my career, in my life, I do think I have that internal confidence, I think, that allows me to be probably better than maybe
Yeah.
20 years ago, to be very honest with you.
Yeah,
How do
and
you
that's
feel
not a
about
small thing. 100%. My business is in a growth phase right now, and we're bringing in subcontract. I just actually was posting about this yesterday, and um, you don't realize. I'm sure this is true for you. You don't realize how far you've come until you see yourself in someone at the beginning of their career or early in their career, and you realize how adept you become. I feel I've realized how adept I've become at asking the right questions,
Mm-hmm.
predicting the question, and even, which I'm sure you're masterful at this, as moderators always are, guiding the conversation towards the right question.
Yeah.
And seeing
Yeah.
that, okay, you're 3 steps away from where we need to be. Let me walk you through, as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to, I think, what we would have done early in our careers, or I certainly would have, because the spunk you see right now, this is reduced, Isabelle. This is lower.
Well,
This is a mild
we're on our
version.
good behavior now because we need other people to understand what we're saying, and we're not just talking to one another, because we
Exactly.
still listen, but we do
Yes.
talk one over the other sometimes. Yes, yes, yes.
Absolutely. But we've
Yeah,
learned
yeah,
how to navigate that, and really, it really is about the confidence. And the way I talk about it is the opposite of that, which is the lack of ego. The lack of
yeah.
ego is what allows you to unlock better thinking and learn from others
And I think you
meaningfully.
probably feel the same way too, which is, I know that if I have a bad question, a bad day, a bad meeting, a bad debrief, if I'm slightly off, it will not define the project's success, because I know how to make up for it. And people still, and sometimes when you make up for it, that's where you build a stronger, more
Mm.
meaningful relationship. You uncover something. Actually, sometimes not having the right answer, or saying, I don't know, let me go back to you, or maybe say, that was weird, let's course correct, or let's pull the plug on this,
Yes.
let's, pivot to this. Usually, actually, in my career, has served me better than actually saying, let's just keep going, and by fear
Yeah.
of. I think failing and getting back up determines the success of a project or not, versus not failing. And you do
Yeah.
remember those quirky road stories. And, how that CEO showed up with Prada loafers to have lasagna somewhere. And, and
The things
how
we've
that
seen,
client
Isabelle. The
how,
things we've seen.
and how, someone had a back issue and decided to do in-homes, and in the middle of an in-home about depression and baby blues, decided to say, can I just lie down on your kitchen floor right now, and don't mind me. Like, there's just like moments, there's moments that you go, well, that happened, and it doesn't matter. Like, I don't get phased anymore. I think that's kind of also
100%.
what happens.
It's actually what you're describing there, and I think this is true anyone in any role. I think what you're describing there is this point of maturity where you have enough knowledge and enough intuition, because ultimately I think the big unlock in everything we're doing is
Yeah.
building up intuition, so that
Yeah.
we can rely on ourselves to make good decisions. Realizing that you don't know something, or that you did something the wrong way, or that you needed to course correct, is so freeing, because it really says to the world, hey, I also make mistakes,
Yeah.
And in course correcting it, it means you can trust my work. It means that you can trust what I'm providing to you, because I'm not going to hold something back because it's wrong or because I thought another way, right?
And that's where a client will say, you know what, the truth will come out. That's where the client will go, well, I'm not going to get promoted for that. And I'm like, well, thank you.
Great.
I love it when someone on Zoom goes, can I be honest with you? I'm like, please be honest.
Please be honest.
Please tell me. Please,
I have this saying I use.
I have the info. I can help you.
Yeah. I have this saying I use at, when you start a workshop, you do kind of intro, rules of engagement. And I use a phrase that says, this is not a safe space. This is a brave space. A safe space means we need to protect you, but actually that's the wrong way of thinking about it. It is incumbent upon you to bring the question forward. It's incumbent upon you to ask the uncomfortable question. It's incumbent upon you to be honest. And that's where brave comes in. By definition, I do have a safe space for you, but that's not the place where great things happen. Great things happen when we are being brave, when we're willing to be wrong, where we're willing to acknowledge, hey, we asked the question at the beginning of this project, and now we've realized it's actually the wrong question, or we actually just need to slightly alter the question. And now we just have to course correct because we didn't know enough. Right?
But you don't know what you don't know. So every group, every consumer engagement is a building block towards something. Yeah. So God forbid you stay with the same method throughout the entire thing, especially in qualitative. I mean, you need to pivot, you need to build, you need to keep going. And so I always say this, and when people say, well, they always say the research is as good as the research material when it comes to ideas or whatever. I'm like, yes and no. If we decide to play it safe and just test a whole bunch of sameness, then people don't know. This is the place to be bold, to be brave, to fail. Don't fail out in the real world. Fail in my world, I always say. Because if you fail in my world, you dust yourself off, you keep learning, and you go. If you failed in the real world, then, that elevator ride we were talking about earlier might be a bit more complicated.
That's the truth.
Yeah,
so true. We're afraid of that, and then that's part of corporate America, what we build to. But I do feel the world is shifting a little that way and allowing us the opportunity to ask again and then ask again until we get to the right answer. And I do appreciate like Agile and a lot of this quick turn research tools and just your ability to go out into the world and get information you need for helping us to do that, where it just doesn't seem so impossible to get an answer that therefore I've got to have all of the ducks in a row. The STEM has to be amazing. The recruit has to be spot on. Like we need to do enough groups or enough. It doesn't always have to be so precise. That's okay.
I mean, we don't consume content the same way, and learning is not a deliverable. It's a journey, and it's a shared journey. And I think embrace the journey. It doesn't have to be a long-winded journey. I mean, but it could be a short, podcast journey. But I mean, it could be a journey.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think there's a bit of that. Okay, so this is amazing. It's always amazing to talk to you. I think this is totally different than what we talked about last week, which is
completely different topic.
I have no idea if that was recorded, but always great. Definitely do a third round for sure. Yes, we have to work together. I think that would be so much fun. We have to land the plane. Yeah, I think that would be great. And
I need to make it up to Quebec. I've never been to Canada. So
and happy to meet you in New York. I'm in New York all the time. Happy to meet you in New York.
No, I need to make my way up there. It sounds incredible, apparently.
Spring is coming. Spring is coming.
You will not see me before that. You will not see me before warm.
No, I don't think that hair can deal with a toque, which is like that Canadian, like static. No, it's not. Don't go
interested.
No, don't be. So we always end every episode with kind of a quick rapid fire kind of 4 questions that are, because there's always a French twist to everything I do. So these are you probably know these from the Actor Studio, actually, from James Lipton. No, I won't ask you what your favorite swear word is.
But I'm happy for that. I'm a terrible swearer. I have a potty mouth.
Well,
I grew up in Jersey. We'll
So
save that for
because
later.
this is all about like sparking inspiration, let me ask you the four one. The first one
Okay.
is, what profession other than your own would you like to try?
Um, this is kind of silly. I would like to try again to be a waitress. I absolutely loved being a waitress when I was young. And I think it just has a lot to do with this culturally, right? Like serving people with food, spending time with new people. Like this work that you and I do means we are constantly meeting people. It's just a
Mm-hmm.
constant influx of new faces, new names, new people, new stories. And I just love that idea of like personal service. If I could open a little restaurant, not that I can, if I wanted to open a little restaurant, I most
Yeah.
certainly would do that. A little cafe. I would love that. Yeah, maybe.
Is food your love language?
Yes, maybe. I would say more, this sounds terrible. This is a bad way of saying, I gotta find another way to say this, that pleasure is the love language, but that sounds bad. It's more
No, I'm
like
from Quebec. You can say passion.
enjoyment.
Yeah,
Passion.
passion. And
Passion is my love language.
yeah, yeah,
Pick a
passion is
topic.
yeah.
If I'm like really into, I mean, you see how I talk about this, and this is my work, which I absolutely love. I can talk about 15 things equally passionate. So to me, being excited about life and excited about things to do and people to meet and places to go, that's my love language.
Yeah, amazing. What's your favorite word?
Is it time for cursing now?
Oh,
Because
you can if you want to. Go for it.
I fuck is my jam. Like fuck everything. Like fuck this, fuck that. Like oh fuck, like fuck yeah. Like just that's
So
my jam.
I love how actually fuck doesn't mean anything in Quebec. So Quebecers use it all the time because that's not the swear
great.
words that they use. They don't take it against sex. They actually have something against the Catholic Church. So their swear words are totally associated to Catholic Church items
No.
and like tokens, which is they're very phonetically sort of they're long words and there's a series of them and some can become verbs and stuff. But I love how fuck doesn't really mean anything in Quebec. And so you can literally just
I
use
need
it
to
all the
go
time
there.
in common language.
Oh,
Yeah,
so there
sometimes
was
it comes
nothing
up
more
in like
exciting.
video quotes and stuff. And they're like, oh, I didn't care, fuck all, blah, blah, blah. And the only
The
thing
clients.
people in Toronto understand is the fuck all. And they're like shocked a bit. And I'm like, it's deprived of meaning in Quebec. It's like saying whatever.
I'm gonna
It's
take
just,
this
yeah.
fuck all attitude. Nothing made me happier than when my daughters became teenagers and we started to soften up. Or like, you make sure not to curse around kids. And as soon as they're listening to music with curse words, I was like, yes, I can be myself
I can
again.
curse
I'm so
again.
excited.
Yeah, I
Dream
hear
come
you.
true.
I have a 14-year-old. I'm there. What is your least favorite word?
No.
Yeah, that's mine too.
Maybe it's no.
Yeah, it's interesting.
I think
how
what I've learned, yeah. Oh, sorry. I was gonna say I think what I've learned
I
about
was
the
gonna
word
say,
no
it's
is
really interesting because we do the same questions. So we're at episode 24, 23? I forgot, but we're like 2 seasons in and or 2 years in, and it's really interesting how most of the people who are on the show actually say that their least favorite word is no. Which I think is really interesting because the one thing that brings us all together is this industry and our passion for like empowering inspiration and sparking inspiration, which I think is really interesting.
Yeah, actually, what I think about the word no is that the idea of no is not bad and it's really important, especially as a strategist. Literally, strategy is just about making choices, right? Like, I'm
Yeah,
going to
it's
do this, I'm
sacrifice.
not going to do that.
Yeah, it's
Sure.
sacrifice. It's boundaries.
But exactly. My issue with the word no is literally the word no. It just comes with so much baggage. There's so many other ways that I can guide you in the right place.
Yeah,
I appreciate that you said that, Isabelle, but what if we thought about it this way instead, right? Like, I don't need to say no. It's not necessary.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like no is a complete sentence. And I'm like, that's not guidance. That's not keeping the conversation going. It's it's just putting up a wall versus a boundary. I think a boundary or a sacrifice or a compromise is not a wall. It's something that course corrects. It's like a detour. It's a different way. It could be an opportunity. It could be something else, but it's not a wall that you're up against and you're facing and there's nothing, nothing you can do about it. Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah.
And then the last one is, what is the best thing a mentor has told you in terms of advice that has stayed with you that you still kind of use to this day?
Early in my consulting career, which has now been 13 years, someone just gave me some feedback about how to be a good team player. That actually is a lot of what we've been talking about here, and about showing up to provide value.
Yeah.
That I think this is maybe true. Well, you're Canadian, maybe it's not true for you, but it's very true for a lot of Americans, that early on in our career, what we're looking for is, we want validation. You like, promote me, tell me I'm amazing, give me an award. I want the best projects. Like, it's about, what am I getting out of this, right? I'm trying to do something with myself and I need you to give me that. And especially as a service provider, but certainly true in life in general, asking what I can do is the unlock to what I get.
Yeah.
Right. My get back is being here with you and having this conversation with you and giving you this. And you've given me a ton of value. All I've tried to do is give you some value. And in that exchange, we both win. Right.
Yeah. I think it goes back to not necessarily, I think it goes back to the art of asking the question. It's not about knowing the answer, but maybe just asking the right question at the right moment and then listening. It's not because you're coming in as an expert that you need to have all the answers. I think you just need to provide the guidance and sort of, the Sherpa sort of side of things. Yeah. Thank you so much, Kathy. This has been truly insightful. That has sparked a lot of inspiration for me, definitely for the people, because a lot of people have been commenting in the chat, which I love that type of engagement. I really love it. So thank you so much. And it really actually, I think it was the episode that I've enjoyed the most, because it really showed how, if we're together looking towards the same goal versus looking at each other and bridging that gap. And really, that's where the magic and the power and success really comes through. And you've given a whole new meaning to the question why, and a whole new purpose for me as a colleague. So thank you for that.
Thank you. And it's been really helpful for me to kind of talk to you. I don't often get a chance to sit with someone who I may partner with, like yourself, to have these kind of conversations. And it's really helpful, and appreciate the opportunity to really share what are a lot of the values at the Clarity Wizard, and how I try to run this company, and that it is about providing value, about putting people first, about the consumer being at the center of what we're doing, and of letting the experts be the experts, of shepherding clients into better thinking and better insights and better strategy, and that we're here as service providers, right? We show up to give people value, and that makes me happy. I love what I do, and it seems like you do too.
I really enjoy it. I've been at it for 25 years, and I'm only 42, so there's hope. There's still hope.
You started when you were 12. That's amazing. I'm not good at the immediate math, as you can tell. I don't know what that is.
I started. I was 19. Yeah, I was really young.
You're a baby.
I was.
You gotta. I started saying 20 years, and like, I'm not gonna move past that. Like, in 20 years, when you see me, I'll be like, I've been doing this for 20 years. Like, it just won't change.
I think I'm gonna cap it at 25, because then it's starting to be intimidating. I think I'm gonna cap it at 25, because now I've been telling people my age. Like, the company's 55. I've owned it for 10 years. I've been at this for 25 years, and then I'm like, and I'm 40. Like, I tell people my age,
all the numbers.
Which at one point I need to stop. So I think
that's how I felt. Like, after 20, I mean, maybe 25 might be the good next marker. I'll end it there. But after that, like, it's diminishing returns.
Yeah, I'm like, I think so. I think there is a bell curve. Yeah, not everybody can be Mick Jagger, right? Okay. Until next time, people, thank you so much for tuning in. Kathy, thank you so much. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Isabelle. Bye.
Bye. Thanks for tuning in to Insightful Inspiration, your trusted market research podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with your network, and we'd love it if you could leave a review or rating on Apple or Spotify. For more on this episode and others, head over to celesco.com. And remember, insight isn't just about what we uncover, it's how we let it shape our actions. Until next time, stay curious, be kind, and keep seeking inspiration. We'll see you soon.